And I think we also have the superpower that we have some level of financial independence or some financial savvy, even if we're sort of only just starting on this journey with financial independence. You kind of know that you can build up, little bits of power, little bits of power. I think, on the, it's not like a zero or one. It's like as your portfolio grows, it really does give you a lot of confidence. It gives you, I guess a little bit more of that confidence to
Mm,
ask the questions, to push the boundaries a little bit more, because you know that, okay, well, if it doesn't work out with this job, if they're not going to be flexible, but that's what I want out of a role, I could leave this job and I could, wait 3 months until I find the next perfect job because I've got that financial backing behind me. It's not ideal. It's not what I imagine for my FI journey, but I have that, behind me, and I have that little superpower. So I think that definitely helps pushing you to ask the question.
you don't have to wait until you reach financial independence to start enjoying your life. You can do that much earlier and start living a life that you love and that's true to you. Welcome to Freedom Before Fire. Using fire and life design techniques, we help you create freedom on your way to fire instead of waiting until you're retired to do the things that light you up. I'm your host Greg, a fire movement and life design enthusiast. If you're itching to get freedom now, then let's do this. Brenda, thank you very much for joining us today. I'm really excited about this episode, to have you on and to speak to you and understand your story, and for the listeners to understand what you've been up to. And you've done loads of good things for the community and doing some great stuff along your FI journey. So I'm going to ask you to introduce yourself in a second, but just for people that might not know, so Brenda sort of recently became friends across some fire Facebook groups. And then we've done a few sessions together for the life design sessions, and Brenda joined those. She was gracious enough to give us her time. And then, we just had a blast doing that. So, Brenda, I'll give you the floor if you don't mind doing a quick intro. Tell us about yourself and what you're up to at the moment.
Sure. Yeah, it's great to be here. Thanks for inviting me along, Greg. So I guess my elevator pitch is I've just moved across Australia, so from the south to the north. And really part of that was around lifestyle design, something that was already in play before I did Greg's course. And I guess it's talking about physical environment. I didn't want to have cold toes and cold nose anymore, so I've moved slightly further north into some sort of subtropical environment of Brisbane, Australia. And I've been involved in the fire community for probably like 7 or 8 years. I used to organise meetups in Melbourne, and I also organise a Firespark Retreat, which is sort of like a weekend retreat. I guess you would describe it as a school camp for adults, where we talk about fire stuff and just, do some fun activities together, all that kind of thing, have some speakers. Actually, even today, I've just been to 2 fire meetups here in Brisbane, Australia. So I love getting involved in this community because we really just think a little bit outside the box. And I think that's always been me, is thinking and living a little bit outside of the box. Before getting into fire, I was just a bit of a travelholic, and that hasn't really stopped. But now I try and not spend all my money on it. So I guess I've always lived a slightly alternative lifestyle.
And for people that are listening and never been to Brisbane in Australia, how would you describe it, and what kind of things do you guys like to do on the weekends and when you're not working and things like that?
Sure. So Brisbane's quite a big city. It's about 3 million people. It's set on a river. And to the south of us is the Gold Coast, which you often see sort of in, advertising for Australia, beautiful golden beaches, that kind of thing. And to the north is the Sunshine Coast, also more beaches, a little bit more sort of like, tropical, lots of hikes, things like that you can do, beautiful national parks. So we're in a really great spot here. We're a big city, so you've got all the conveniences of a big city, but then you can just get out and about and explore southeast Queensland quite easily, whether that be beaches or mountains, all that kind of thing. So I love going for a hike, just walking along the river, checking out a new cafe, a bit of a coffee-aholic, especially coming from Melbourne, the coffee capital of the world, if you ask me. So, yeah, grabbing a coffee somewhere, maybe with an almond croissant, or, yeah, just checking out new places to eat or catch up with new Fire friends.
Yeah, because I've been to Brisbane years ago. I went to Sydney and Brisbane. What I loved about Brisbane is just a bit of a slower pace of life. And that's what I liked about it. And obviously things are a bit cheaper. So that helps as well for people in the community.
Yeah. Maybe not so much now. Real estate prices have gone through the roof here. So certainly it used to be the good, geo arbitrage kind of spot where you could move from Melbourne or Sydney, the big cities, to Brisbane or southeast Queensland. But now I think everyone's caught on and everyone's moved up here for a bit of sunshine. So not quite as cheap as it used to be, but food is definitely cheaper.
Oh, good. Just so people get to understand you a little bit more as well. And other than, I know you mentioned, you like going like coffees and going on meetups and things like that. Is there anything else, when you've got time off to yourself? What are those things that you enjoy doing?
Generally, time off is just sort of exploring, obviously, our new city at the moment. But any chance I get, I love to go away. I've travelled to over 100 countries. Yeah, definitely exploring new places. A lot of those places I've been more than once. I really love going to Europe. I lived in the UK for a couple of years. I've lived in Mexico. I've lived in Japan. Yeah, definitely sort of any time of extended time off that I can get, definitely heading away traveling. Unfortunately, moving north, we don't have someone to look after our little dog. So that's making travel a little bit more tricky from up here in Brisbane. But we've got all of these new places that we can explore around our new city. So taking advantage of that and the beautiful weather that goes with it.
Fantastic. All right. Before we get into like your FI story and what you've been doing on that side, what is your current status at the moment in terms of your FI? What's your portfolio like? What's your targets? Where are you on that journey? Feel free to share whatever you feel comfortable with.
Sure. So back in my 20s, before I started university, I did have an investment property. I really thought that property was the way to go. It's really hammered into us in Australia that, everyone should own a house. You have a house with the picket fence in the backyard and, all of that kind of thing. And then if you buy another house and you get passive income and, it all just works seamlessly. But nowadays, I sold that quite a few years ago. It was out in the country. It really didn't get that much capital growth. And now I'm all shares. In Australia, we have, I guess, a sort of pension fund called superannuation. So our employers have to put 12% of into that on top of our income. So 12% into our superannuation fund. And we can access that from the age of 60. So in Australia, if you're sort of pursuing FI, most people will sort of have their outside of superannuation bucket and their inside of superannuation bucket. So we can top up and add a little bit extra on top of what our employees give to our superannuation, but there is a cap to that. And obviously anything else goes outside of super into sort of like a share fund, mainly just in ETFs and index funds, keep it really simple. Certainly when I first started, looking into FI and going down the rabbit hole, it was all about which fund should I go with and the paralysis analysis and, making sure that you're optimizing everything and learning about the 4% rule and what your FI number is and all that kind of thing. But I think over time, I've definitely appreciated the keep it simple kind of, mantra when it comes to all things, even your lifestyle. It's much easier if you're keeping things simple, taking a minimalist kind of approach, that kind of thing. So I think my sort of share portfolio and my super allocation for that matter is exactly the same, just keeping it simple. And it's really there just as a tool and a way to create a life that I love and to design a life outside where I'm not beholden to work necessarily. So it's really just money's just a tool. It's certainly obviously something that we focus on a lot in this community. And certainly at the start, it's all about the numbers. But I think once you get past the numbers, you start looking at the lifestyle that goes with that. So in terms of where I'm at in the journey, probably my portfolio, both portfolios are probably about halfway to where they need to be. But we all know that with the power of compounding, that if the number's halfway, it doesn't mean that you're halfway on the journey. So I would say I'm probably maybe 2/3 of the way or so on the journey, because I know the power of compounding will, take me to the finish line from here. At the moment, I'm kind of wrestling with, do I extend that journey a little bit longer and maybe work a little bit less now? So drop down to part-time work or something like that. Take another sabbatical, for example. And I'm sure we'll talk about sabbaticals later on. Or do I just charge on to the end and continue sort of working full-time for a couple more years, so maybe 3 to 4 years, and then hit the road and not have to wake up to an alarm and go to work?
Awesome. So just to clarify then for the guys, are you working full-time right now, part-time, or what's your working situation?
So I'm working full-time. So 2 years ago, or just under 2 years ago, I had a year off work, and I decided to sort of change into a different industry or area of government work. The benefits of government work in Australia is that we have lots of really good conditions. So not just, obviously a decent pay, but we can do things like I work a condensed work week. So I do longer days, but only 4 days a week. And I have Fridays off every week. So that's sort of part of what I was trying to create with, a bit of lifestyle design, where I can, where I can ask the question and hopefully get a positive response from the boss. So I do that. Also, when you take your leave, you normally get your 4 weeks of leave a year, or depends what country you're on, how much leave you get. But I can take it at half pay. So I could sort of take twice as much leave if I need to. So I have some good benefits, sort of, even though I do have to work full time. But I'm sort of starting to think about, do I actually want to maybe drop down to part-time, because I do volunteer on the weekends, and I like to sort of get out and do other things rather than slaving away in front of a computer all day.
It sounds like it was an easy conversation to have to negotiate those little perks.
Yeah, I think a lot of people are really nervous to ask for the things that they could potentially be entitled to. The option is written there in our enterprise agreement for our work, but it doesn't mean that people have the confidence to necessarily ask the question and say, hey, I would like to take advantage of this option that I have. They don't want to kind of rock the boat and all that kind of thing. But I have found that, it's always been a really easy conversation to have, and that, if you do a good job when you're at work, then people are willing to, make it work for you and make it work for them.
Yeah, there's so much power in being a great team member. And I always believe that, always do your best, and because you build that reputation, and then if down the line when you need to ask for things, and you obviously built that trust, and it just makes those conversations easier, isn't it? So even if we're sort of only just starting on this journey with financial independence, you kind of know that you can build up little bits of power. I think on the it's not like a 0 or 1. It's like as your portfolio grows, it really does give you a lot of confidence. It gives you I guess a little bit more of that confidence to ask the questions, to push the boundaries a little bit more, because you know that, okay, well, if it doesn't work out with this job, if they're not going to be flexible, but that's what I want out of a role, I could leave this job and I could, wait 3 months until I find the next perfect job, because I've got that financial backing behind me. It's not ideal. It's not what I imagine for my FI journey, but I have that, behind me, and I have that little superpower. So I think that definitely helps pushing you to ask the question. Yeah, that FU money gives you a bit of a safety net, doesn't it? when you want to make changes.
FU money gives you a lot of power, and obviously financial independence does give you a bit of a superpower. I think also, maybe we know in the back of our minds that we have this superpower. Maybe we've been one of those people that's always been frugal, always seems to have more money than our friends, and you don't know how they waste all their paycheck when they earn more than you and all that kind of thing. I think there's a lot of people in this community that they're like, oh, I've always been frugal, and then I just found this name for it, kind of thing. So I think that's also where we can also validate our power, is joining up with the FI community, And, even if it's, you don't have a fire community close by to you, but you can listen in on the podcast and you can hear other people's stories and you can sort of hear your own story in their story. I think that really helps you to validate that you do have this power. So I think that's why having this sort of fire community is really important, because, you may sort of have this inkling in your mind that I have this power that nobody else seems to, whether it's frugality or just understanding money better than other people. But connecting with other fire people is like so powerful, because you just have all these like-minded people in the room, and sometimes it just feels like you could solve the world's problems, if we wanted to, because we all just like really think alike, and sort of validate that what we're doing isn't crazy, it isn't just like this weird niche group that's on the outside of society. We're not just sticking to society's rules of following the usual formula of having to work until we're at proper retirement age or anything like that. So I think it is really important to leverage not just the power of FU money and our own portfolios and what we've achieved ourselves, but also sort of validate it in ourselves by connecting with these like-minded people in the fire community.
I 100% agree. I always think, most people that are on this sort of fire journey in their sort of local close communities, whether it's their families and friends, they're usually on their own, and it's typically like they're on that sort of FI journey, but no one around them really understands what they're doing and what that's about. Yeah, they can feel sort of isolated, especially even I experienced that myself. And I remember when I got involved and met you guys, you, Andrew, Jamie, Gladys, shout out to them by the way if they ever listen to this, but it was just nice to have that, talk to people that are on the same journeys and understand like the similar language and what we're up to. And so there's massive power in that sort of community mindset, and ideas just pop out here and there about what to do, and it's really amazing the benefits of that. So 100% agree. All right, Brenda, so in terms of your FI journey, from when you found out about it and up to sort of, let's say up to now, for example, what was that sort of time duration? How long have you been sort of on this sort of FI journey?
I think probably about 7 or 8 years now. I'm not one of those people that can put their finger on the one article that I read that sort of sent me down the rabbit hole. I mean, it definitely would have been like, how do I stop working now? Or how do I create passive income? Or, something along those lines. I had investment property. And the plan was after university to maybe build up more investment properties. But when I travel so much, it's so hard to like manage those things. You don't want the phone calls saying, oh, we've got to fix this or that or whatever with the tenants. At least have it now switching to shares makes life a lot simpler. But definitely once I sort of found, I guess mostly US kind of, bloggers and things like that, I really did sort of start to go down the rabbit hole. I mean, I never even listened to podcasts until I sort of got into the fire community and then heard there was these podcasts about people talking about fire. So I was like, okay, I better start listening to podcasts. And now like I listen to them like every single day of like different ones. So yeah, once you sort of put a name to something that you're already sort of wanting to do or already on the path to doing, I already wanted to stop working if I could and just have that time freedom, whether it be for travel or whether it's to like start my own thing. But I'm also, on the other hand, despite all the travel and all the other things that I've done, I'm actually also really risk adverse. And I actually find that there's a lot of people in this community that are surprisingly quite risk averse, given that we do live potentially a slightly, outside of the norm lifestyle in a lot of cases. And we have these thoughts about finishing work early that kind of don't gel with what the rest of society is kind of working towards. But yeah, I am quite risk adverse. It took me a long time to kind of really get started and actually to start investing. Like I definitely had a lot of that paralysis analysis, but I've always been quite a really good saver and like wanted to have that financial backing behind me. most of the time I'd then spend it on money. So it wasn't probably until I got a mortgage and I had to like sort of properly support myself and not just come back and from overseas and crash on my friend's couch or something. I sort of worked towards, okay, well, I've got this mortgage under control. I've got a house and a roof over my head. What do I do now with my money? And it would have been somewhere along those lines that I then found the fire community and just, totally went down the rabbit hole of all sorts of bloggers. So we have a blogger here in Australia, Aussie Firebug, and then that led me on to Strong Money Australia, some really great Australian material for those people out there that were looking for sort of Australian bloggers. And reading their stories and reading their analysis of things gave me the confidence to then, go down this path.
Amazing. And are you doing this alone, or are you doing this together with your partner, or?
So I've got a partner. We've been together for 17 years, and we have a very spoilt fur baby, our dog, who's 11 and a half. Having a partner does, I think, make things easier, but only if they're on the same wavelength as you. And luckily, my partner probably wasn't as frugal as me when we first met, and now he always quotes back to me when he's like considering a purchase or something like that. He's like, is the value there? And we kind of make a bit of a joke of it. Nice. That like the value has to be there to make a purchase. So I've definitely, shown him the light. But at the same time, I think he feels very supported by the fact that he's gone down this financial path as well. So we keep our finances separate. We don't have kids. We don't plan to have kids. So we do keep our finances separate. But obviously once I'd explore these, fire sort of stuff, I passed it on to him and told him all about it. And he's sort of in his own way in the background doing a similar thing, but he doesn't feel like he needs to kind of share it with people, beyond that, the fact that he's doing that so he can make his own choices. The industry he was in was shift work, and so that obviously takes quite a toll on you over a number of years. So I think the fact that he can see people that in his workplace that have had to slog through to 65 and continue to do that shift work for another 20 years on top of what he's done, whereas he can say, I can take a step back, I can change to casual, I can stop work altogether, and not have to have that, stress on your body of not getting enough sleep, and working in the middle of the night and all of that crazy kind of thing. So I think he's really grateful for this journey as well, even though he doesn't sort of engage, so much with the fire community. I guess that's my side of fire, is I love engaging with the community. That's not really his thing, but he's certainly got something out of fire as well.
Yeah, awesome. And you said earlier about how he wasn't as frugal as you. So did you find out about it first, and then you kind of had to kind of persuade him in some ways, or how did you guys get on board on the same wavelength?
So he's sort of went down a similar thing in that he had an investment property, and made him like a little bit of money, but it was a bit of hassle, and so I think we bought our house then after we both got rid of investment properties, and just concentrated on putting money into our own mortgage and paying that down so that we had that freedom of not that hanging over our heads. But when that got under control, I think we were then both looking for the next step. So I just happened to find all of this, fire sort of things. And a lot of the Australian bloggers were talking about index funds and ETFs and things like that. So he was certainly interested in reading that. And also reading about, I guess, he's much more the spreadsheet kind of person. I'm just the kind of, I don't know, I'm a bit more of the like design and talking about it and all that kind of stuff, but he's the number cruncher. So I think he really also enjoyed reading all those bloggers once I introduced them to him. And he had less analysis paralysis than I did. I definitely had a bit more analysis paralysis, but him jumping in first meant that I could follow him.
That's fantastic. It's funny you mentioned that. I always think, like in a couple, you always have someone that's like really good, like the spreadsheet person, doing all the admin, and then the other person just got sort of cheering the other person on. So that's similar to my situation. Me and my wife, I'm the sort of spreadsheet person. But yeah, that works well. Okay, you mentioned earlier then, so you're sort of, in terms of numbers, 50%, but generally that sort of equates, including compounding, that's like 2/3 of your way. And I've done a interview with Michael he's from the Irish Fire podcast, and he says in one of his episodes that he has in his podcast, he said something along the lines of, when you get to a certain number, the numbers and the spreadsheets and all of that type of stuff, it kind of loses its importance, and you kind of focus more on living your life. And you mentioned earlier about how you're into life design. And obviously this podcast is about, the freedoms you get on your way to FI before you get there, and living your life against your values and things like that. So Brenda, in your journey, what kind of things have unlocked for you in terms of freedoms, and what benefits has it opened up for you on your journey?
So I guess probably the big one is taking that year off work about 2 years ago. I guess I was probably around the 50% of the way there mark in terms of the whole journey then. And I really kind of got to a point where I was just doing the job that I was doing because I'd done it for a while, and, I just wasn't rocking the boat on it. But I kind of realized that I didn't really have that much of a passion for, I guess, the industry or the area that I was kind of working in. And so I decided that, well, I'm still do need to work, unfortunately, to get to FI. So if I still had a good, 4 or 5 years or something at that point to work, I might as well try and move to an area that I actually felt like some purpose in going to work and achieving something good for the planet, and not just slogging away, 9.5 hours a day with my condensed work week, and sort of trying to count down the days and try and make something of the work hours that I still had to kind of do. So I decided I would we're lucky in Australia that if you work for an employer if it's government, it's 7 years, you get long service leave. So it's like an extra 12 weeks of leave that you can get for sort of that long service with one employer. So I took that and some annual leave at half pay and stretched that out for 6 months. And then I left that job, and then I had enough money behind me to sort of just, continue on for another 6 months until I found another job. But I took that opportunity to, I guess, have a break, explore what retirement could kind of look like when it's early retirement and all your friends are still working. I had, some big travels post-COVID kind of, planned, to try to do some catch up there. And also just to explore that time off between travel. I'd always been one of those people that if I got holidays, I would literally be heading to the airport from work on a Friday night or something, Thursday night, and then I would arrive back into the airport, the night before I had to go back to work. I didn't have that nice downtime at home where you had to try and fill that space and that routine that you normally have. So yeah, definitely having that time off for that year, even though some of it was job hunting and other things, really gave me a taste for what retirement would look like. So rather than just falling off the retirement cliff and just working full time and then, okay, I've hit my number and then I'm retiring, and then you've got this void of time. What do I do with it all when my friends are still working? I was able to kind of look at volunteering, and, deciding, how I wanted to structure my day, and, just sort of exploring that expanse of time that wasn't just traveling all the time. So I think that's really important. If anyone's ever out there considering taking, it doesn't have to be a year. It literally could be, I think, probably a minimum 3 months, especially if you're maybe not going to do travel. But otherwise, I would have said if you want some travel in there, then give it 6 months. So you've got a bit of time at home, either before or after the travel, to just explore having this real sense of time. And what time freedom actually means, from a physical perspective, that what does a day and a week look like, and how are you going to feel that, and how are you going to feel productive during that time. So definitely being on this journey and being able to take that year off, and explore that, and kind of then from there on, I've really made a lot of tweaks. I mean, it also gave me the time to, meet people in the fire community. I was organizing just, once a month and weekend, just day long fire meetups. And having all that time off gave me the time to plan a whole like weekend retreat of fire stuff and organize venues and organize speakers and, all of that sort of thing as well. So, I think with that expanse of time, people can explore what is there outside of work. Can I still be productive? People always look down on the fire community to say, oh, well, you're not going to be productive. You're just going to sit around and drink cocktails on the beach or something. But actually, I feel like most of us are the type of people that really do want to be productive, and we do want to give back to society, even if it's just our little community of society. So yeah, having that time to see what you are capable of, pulling off that retreat. I'd only started planning it 3 months before it actually happened, and having this great weekend where we had speakers come and speak, people, that I've now been friends with for over a year since that event, and seeing the things that they've actually put into play, things that they, discuss with other people around the breakfast table, or that they heard from some of the presenters at that event, and then they've actually put into action in their life, is actually kind of really inspiring. And it kind of then pushes you to think about and do things a little bit differently and see how you can tweak your own life to make improvements. So taking that year off, it was really like spurred me on to pivot jobs. I am in another sort of I guess industry now. It's still not maybe the right job for me, but at least I've kind of got my foot in the door. I'm still pushing towards trying to do something that means a bit more, and it isn't just a slog to get through the hours of the day. Obviously, I've made a move to another state, so that I could have a better physical environment for the weather, and just lifestyle and that kind of thing. So yeah, there's lots of different aspects of your life that you can make small tweaks in to make changes. Definitely.
Yeah, and I love sabbaticals, and on this show, I've been on a few long ones as well, just like yourself, and you learn so much about yourself just going on that journey. And when you've got that time away from the sort of full-time hustle and grind of work, you've got that space to contemplate and think. And so for yourself, Brenda, what kind of things did you learn about yourself at the end of the 12 months?
Quite a lot of things. As I said, the first 6 months I was still getting paid. It was at half pay, so it was definitely less. But for someone that's always been frugal, and through my 20s, I would literally, get some job, save up some money, quit the job, go traveling until the money ran out, and came back and crashed on friends' couches or went back to the parents' place or something like that. But now that I'm, a bit older, I've got a mortgage, I've got responsibilities, I've got this goal or this vision to get to FI. The first fortnight when I wasn't getting a paycheck after having a job for, basically 15 years with very, very minor kind of gaps, and not getting paid, and all of a sudden, like, I had plenty of money there, but I was having to start to draw down on that pot. It really does change something in your mind. So I think that was probably one of the things for this community where we're savers and we're building the pot, that it is a real mind switch to have to start actually drawing down on the pot. And I didn't think that I would have an issue with that. And so it was really surprising that literally the first fortnight I wasn't getting paid, that I was like, oh, I don't have something landing in my bank account. I actually have to like take money out of these savings that I've set aside. I had to really work through that and kind of, convince myself, no, it's okay. Like, you can kind of draw down money and that sort of thing. I think the other thing was that, so the first 6 months we definitely had a lot of travel. So the little, 1 month or 6 weeks in between each trip that we had at home, we're trying to do some things to our house. And so, it's sort of keeping busy enough. But once we'd sort of finished that travel, and I was really kind of going more into like the job hunting kind of mode. So it was just like being at home, like downtime at home still. You're not spending all day applying for jobs. I did kind of have some times where I was like, wow, I've really got nothing planned this week, and it kind of feels like wasteful, or strange or like kind of weird that I feel like I needed to be productive. So I did start volunteering then, and that did kind of help put some structure back in my week. And so I think I learnt that even though I thought I was more of a like, oh, I could just go traveling and just bum around and like, have no structure. I think I actually do need structure, and I do need maybe a little bit of routine. So I think it also taught me that. So in terms of, planning for proper retirement in a few years' time, I think our initial vision of, hey, we're just going to be nomadic and we're just going to travel around the whole time, I think that really taught me that, okay, well, if we are going to be nomadic, it might be for chunks of time, but it's definitely going to be slower travel. That I like routine. I like, being able to cook my own food. And I've traveled a lot, but it's always just been that rush travel. So, it's only like a month and then you can go back to your own kitchen kind of thing. So I think, how I want to structure my time and even how I want to structure travel once I have that freedom to travel for as long as I want. I think that has probably changed a bit since that year I had off. So I would recommend it to anyone. You do learn a lot about yourself and how you want life to look and how you want your week and your month to be structured or not structured. Maybe some people just like having no structure. Until you try it, you're not going to know.
Yeah, exactly. I 100% agree. Like doing sabbaticals I think they're a must if you feel, that, you do need a bit of a break. Or if anyone loves what they're doing already, then, and loves, their day to day, then that's absolutely fine. But if you do feel that you're in a place, if anyone's sort of listening, that they're like, oh, I wouldn't mind, doing something different or something more in tune with your values and what you enjoy doing, then 100%, it's definitely worth it. Even just the time to, be with family, your loved ones, or your time to yourself and doing things that you enjoy doing, hobbies. And yeah, so it's just a massive benefit and a really good learning experience. All right, so Brenda, you touched on something I did wanted to ask you about, which was the retreats that you've done. I'm really curious. So can you, before you jump into like the ins and outs of running a retreat, and how many days did you say that was? How many people was there? Where was it? Just the sort of the outline of the retreat itself, and then we'll kind of jump into the details of it.
Yeah, sure. So it was Firespark Retreat, and so it ran in May 2024. It was just a weekend, so Friday to Sunday. Sometimes I think that was maybe slightly too short, but a lot of people that travelled, from interstate to come to it, kind of did some extra travel kind of around that weekend and explored the area. So it was outside of Melbourne, in a small town called Queenscliff. So it's down near the beach. It's on Port Phillip Bay. So a sort of, I guess, almost like a fishing beach kind of community. As I described it as like, school camp for adults, it was sort of one big venue where everyone stays at the venue. So you can have a chat over breakfast, during lunch, obviously, in the evenings after we've gone out. The way I sort of planned Firespark Retreat is obviously with the travel kind of background that I have. I wanted it to be like a weekend away that we maybe don't let ourselves have because we've got this fire goal, and we won't go out for that fancy meal because but I could save an extra 1% if I didn't go out for that fancy meal, those kind of things. So I wanted it to be like a weekend away where they're exploring that area, exploring that beachside town, but also for us to have, really good time as a fire community, getting to know people and obviously having, sort of talks and that kind of thing as well, panel sessions and that sort of thing. So in the evenings, we would go out to local restaurants. So on the Saturday night, we went out to, a fancy kind of restaurant in town. It's quite, well-known chef, get a 3-course meal that's all included. It's something that people maybe wouldn't splurge on normally because, we're being a bit frugal or we're, trying to save towards a certain goal. So it's kind of a crossover between travel and exploring a particular area and also, like a campfire kind of event. So the next one's going to be in 2026, late July, early August. I'm currently scouting out venues because now that I've moved to beautiful sunny Queensland, it'll be here in southeast Queensland somewhere, so around the Brisbane, Gold Coast, Sunshine Coast area. And so that'll be a new destination for people that maybe came to the last Firespark Retreat, and they get to explore a new area, but still make those connections with the fire community. So it's a little bit of a weekend away, and it's also a little bit of sort of a fire meetup. So it kind of falls into both camps. So it's really exciting just bringing the community together. I'd seen that there was these kind of events like overseas in the US happening, but nothing like that was happening in Australia. We just had these like, one-off, once a month meetups, that kind of thing. Based on the group that I organised in Melbourne, I kind of felt like, there was a lot of people that were interested in something like that happening. And so I thought, well, I've got the time on my hands now because I've got this year off. And so I decided I would put it out into the world. And, if you want something to happen, sometimes you just have to do it yourself. So I'm always been a bit of a planner. Obviously, normally it's on travel. So it was a bit of a pivot to spend some time scouting out venues, finding the right kind of feel for a venue, putting budgets together for things, launching tickets, marketing it, trying to push it out there in the world and get people interested. And we ended up we had 2 speakers fly in for the event, or drive and fly in for the event from interstate. They're sort of well known in the Australian kind of fire or fire kind of community. And about 30 people kind of attend for that for the weekend, coming from all over Australia. Obviously, a big contingent from Victoria, but we did have some interstaters as well. Again, shout out to Jamie and Andrew. It was just great. Even if there's something in the back of your mind, it doesn't need to be something in fire. But if you've sort of thought, oh, I'd really like to have, I don't know, a book evening or some type of craft thing or whatever hobby it is, and you've thought, oh, it'd be great to have this kind of event for this hobby community, just organize it and put it out there in the world, especially when you have a bit of financial backing. I mean, I kind of went into it and I was like, if I don't lose more than $1,000, it's worth it, because I would pay $1,000 to attend something like this myself. So yes, I'm putting these hours in and I'm organizing it. Luckily, I didn't. We we broke even. I wasn't trying to make a profit out of it. It was just so great to plan something, bring all these people together, go off fairly smoothly, and everyone to just like be so happy at the end of the weekend and making these new connections and thinking, well, I did that. I brought these people together. And there's all these connections that are continuing like to this day, and I'm sure will continue like into the future. So if there's anyone out there that's got this little thought in their head about organizing something, as I said, it doesn't have to be the fire community. It can be in some other hobby group that you're in. Just do it, because you won't regret it. It'll just bring you so much you really make yourself proud that you brought this thing into the world.
Oh, amazing. So what were some of the benefits from doing a retreat and attending? If someone was thinking about it, going to the next one, what are some of the benefits that you found from the last one that people could sort of look forward to?
So I mean, we obviously have like guest speakers, like well-known people in the sort of fire community, come and speak. And normally I try and pick people that are sort of certain topics that I know always come up at just even just day meetups and things like that. But I think the biggest benefit is just really properly connecting with other people from the fire community. Creating these lifelong friendships. Anyone that's sort of been like an exchange student, or they've been in some situation where you're in done a language immersion course or like something like that, where you're sort of like a group of people and you're all in the same boat and you just have these instant connections with people. It's just really powerful. And when you're spending, even if it's only 48 hours together, you're so tired by the end of it. I mean, I was definitely very tired as the organizer. But other fire events that I've been to, you're really putting a lot into conversations. You're actively listening, you're engaged in the conversation, you're wanting to also, be part of the conversation. It is very tiring, but it's also very rewarding. It's kind of that really good drained kind of but happy space that you're in, because you make these really good connections with people because they are already like-minded people being in the fire community. So I think it's just those connections, more than like, oh, I'm just going to drop by a meetup for a couple of hours on an afternoon, and then I've got to go off to the supermarket, and then I've got to like pick up the kids from their, friend's place that they're hanging out at, or whatever you got to do. What am I going to cook for dinner tonight? Just having that weekend away where you don't have to think about the food, you don't have to think about the shopping, you don't have to, you don't have to think about any of that. All you're thinking about is just connecting with the people that are there. So it does. You can go a bit deeper with people and have those, really good conversations, and then continue them afterwards, because you've made quite a strong enough connection in a weekend that you stay friends and you stay in contact, and continue to sort of build that relationship. I mean, they always say that as we become, into later life, probably out of our 20s and into 30s and 40s, it's harder to make new friends. People's sort of sphere of friends get smaller and smaller and smaller as we get older. Things like loneliness are, a proper epidemic around the world now, as people get older. So I think wherever you can make a connection with a community that you really gel with and that you'll have a like-minded sort of approach to, that'll really put you in good stead as you go forward. Because, if you finish work but everybody else is still working, that's going to feel lonely at times. So if you've got this community to build on, then that's really going to help. Even if it's just taking a sabbatical for a year. As I said, I had moments where I was like, wow, I've got no one to like hang out with this week besides my partner and my dog. But having the fire community to say, hey, who's free for a coffee? And someone's always free, because there's people that are semi-fi or lean fire, or they're totally fired, and there's generally always someone to catch up with. So it definitely does help you on the journey. It's not just a monetary value, it's also just feeling that part of a community.
Oh, amazing. Yeah, that sounds fantastic. I've never been on one myself, but I'd definitely love to do that. And mate, I might even do one set one up here in Philippines. That's yeah. All right. Okay, Brenda. So we've come to part in the show where it's rapid fire questions, and I've got 5 questions here. Just keep your answers really brief and short. First thing that comes to your mind, and we'll get on with the first question. All right. So the first question number 1 is: what's something you wish you'd done 10 years ago?
I think, given I've been on the fire sort of journey for only 7 or 8, I would have to say that I wish I had started investing in shares, and I wish I had have sort of found this community earlier, so 10 years ago or more than 10 years ago, because it really has given me a lot, and it's really given me a proper direction. I was frugal, I could save, all the rest of it, but finding the fire community has given me direction. So I think that's it's really good. We all should have goals and things that we want to strive for, and the community has sort of given me that.
Love it. All right, question number 2. What are 1 or 2 daily habits that have helped you in your journey?
I'm not a, track every kind of thing that I spend kind of person. I just automatically have always saved a chunk of whatever I earned. So I would say it would have to be staying caffeinated. Coffee is definitely a daily habit that I cannot live without. And the other is movement. And I think, with movement, even if it's just for a walk around the block at your lunch break or whatever, we need to have this. We need to, we're wanting to have these really long retirements. But I think we also need to take our health with that as well. I'm certainly not perfect. One thing I did learn from my year off is, even if I've got infinite time in my week, it doesn't mean I necessarily like all of a sudden exercise every day and, push myself to all of a sudden be a gym junkie or something. You still have to really work on that and work on your health. So just some type of movement every single day. And you can make it fun. Listen to an audiobook, listen to a podcast. I hear Greg's podcast is pretty good, so that's a good one to listen to. There's a bit of a back catalogue you can catch up on.
Nice one. Love the plug. All right. And then question number 3, your most important lesson in life, Brenda?
This one's a tough one. It's a bit of a curveball. I'm going to give everyone a bit of a travel tip. That my travel lesson in life is always take your pillow with you. It makes the world of difference. When you get a good night's sleep, you can go out and take on the world.
So I need to just jump in quickly, because when I went on my first sabbatical, 12 months, I did actually, because I've got the pillow that I use is like paper thin back in the day, before 6-7 years ago. And I literally went around with my pillow, folded it in my luggage, and I brought it around with me.
Yep, I always take my big pillow with me. I have a contour one, so yeah, it goes everywhere. No manky bloody pillowcases and pillows for me. I just want my own.
That's hilarious. I thought I was the only one that done that. But anyway. All right. Question number 4. What are 2 or 3 transformational books that you can recommend to listeners that have helped you?
I'd like to say Die with Zero, because I know it's had such an impact on so many people in the community. And certainly when we at Firespark, one of our talks was about Ikigai, so finding your purpose, and how to incorporate that into Die with Zero. And that was a really popular topic for people to talk about. I don't know if I can actually recommend the writing itself. It's very repetitive. So for some people, it's like this could have been a blog post. But for other people, they like the repetition of that message is really like drilled home, like the whole book. So I think just the idea in that, and some of the ideas about memory dividends and things like that, are really important for people to not lose sight of why we're doing all of this. So that would be one. Other than that, I would say the rest of the time I don't actually read finance books. I quite like a chick lit or a Regency romance, or something that's totally not anything to do with time or financial freedom. So probably no other book recommendations from the Fire world.
All right. And then last question is, what are 1 or 2 small things listeners can do this week if they wanted to kind of get into the position that you're in, they're inspired by your story? What would those 1 or 2 things be?
I would say definitely see if there is an in-person meetup of some sort in your city or your area that you can attend, because having that in-person connection really makes a big difference. I would say that if you're still sort of, on that working or that career journey, don't be afraid to, if you see someone that you really kind of like the way that they work, or you think they're like quite inspiring, asking them if they want to go out for a coffee and shout them a coffee. Like that could be the best $5 that you ever spend, just to get some insights for them or understand them better. Or maybe you sort of had them up on a pedestal, but actually you take them out for coffee and you talk to them and they're a total moron. And you think, oh, okay, I'm glad I didn't kind of aspire to be them then. So definitely have the courage to, I guess push those boundaries where you can, and be outside of your comfort zone a little bit by asking someone out for coffee.
Nice. Like that one. All right. So those are the questions. Thanks a lot for answering the rapid fire questions. Brenda, yeah, we've come to the end of the show. I'd love to sit and chat with you longer, but I know you've got things to do. Just before we sort of end off, was there anything that you'd like to say to the listeners? Any sort of plugs yourself? Floor is yours, Brenda.
I just really want to encourage people to attend an in-person event, whether it be a weekend one or just one day or just a coffee catch-up in their area. Have a look at what sort of multi-day events there are around the world. I'm attending Fire Freedom Retreat in Bali this year. I run Firespark Retreat. It's going to be on late July, early August 2026. Follow the Facebook page if you want to kind of follow along and find out more. There's Tribe Fire in Australia that runs in Sydney towards the end of the year. In the US, there's heaps. There's Campfire, there's Economy, there's, Camp Mustache. There's even in New Zealand, there's sort of, a day-long event around Black Friday kind of time. Definitely check out what's happening in your area. I know there's a few that are picking up in Europe as well, because really if you enjoy listening to this type of content, and are inspired by some of the stories that you hear in things like podcasts, then you're definitely going to be inspired by the people that you meet at those events.
Fantastic. All right, Brenda. Well, thank you very much for your time again. And it's been great chatting to you. And I'm sure we'll keep in touch. And thanks a lot, Brenda.
Thanks for inviting me on, Greg. It's been great.
Thank you for spending your time with us today. If you need more help, you can check out our free guides and services on our website, freedombeforefire.com. If you have a burning question or just want to chat, don't hesitate to drop me an email at greg@freedombeforefire.com. If you found the show useful and want to be notified of future episodes, you can click follow on Spotify, Apple, or the app you're currently using right now. If you think the episode will help a friend or a colleague, feel free to share it with them. And lastly, if you learned just one good thing that will help you in your journey and you want to help us out, please do leave a 5-star rating on your podcast player app. That would help us out loads.